Hey Bhumika, thank you so much for joining us today for an episode of Caffeine and Carrots.
Thank you, Rohan. Really happy to be here and to be speaking with you.
Thank you. And so for everyone listening in, we have Bhumika Arora with us today. She is the founder and consulting coach with Rough Day Coaching Services. She's also participating in a lot of other consulting, gigs around, including Women in CS and a lot of other places. Welcome again, Bhumika. I thought it's apt for us to talk about something that you're so involved in, something that you're passionate about, and you've posted a lot about it. You've spoken a lot about it. It's about CS, customer success career path to leadership. And so, I'm hoping you're as excited as me to, get this.
Yeah, very excited. I think that we're kind of at such a cusp with customer success where we need to kind of empower our leaders more and really understand what that means and what it even means to be a customer success leader. So, super excited to dive into it with you.
Perfect. As we're starting off, we just wanted to try and understand, who should consider customer success as a career? Is it something that's open to all? Are there things that people should consider as an individual, trying to qualify themselves that is this the right fit for them?
Yeah, so customer success is such a hot job and career path right now. There's a lot of buzz around it. I will say that out of all of the tech career paths that you see out there, it might be known as the easier one to get into, to get your foot in the door with tech. But I think right now, just given the way the market is, companies are being very, very intentional with the type of customer success managers that they hire. They want people who are experienced in at least some sort of area that they're looking for. So the type of people that should consider customer success, for one, you should definitely be passionate about it, right? What does customer success mean? Do you want to solve problems for your customer? Do you want to, get them to success? Don't just get into the career path because it's lucrative or you're trying to get into tech. You should genuinely want to be in it. And I think the other part of it is just you should have some sort of consultative approach to things. You should be able to ask good questions, really work with people to get them to where they need to be. So think about it like you're going to be doing that day in, day out. So if you don't like talking to people or you don't like talking to customers, it's probably not the role for you.
Yeah, makes total sense. And if I were to flip this out from an individual to an organization who's either starting a customer success function or starting the CS ops as part of their ecosystem, do you think we were discussing about this earlier that a lot of organizations sort of mix it up, muddle it up with customer support, with marketing, with sales, and a lot of different things put together as a CS role. So what are your observations on that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Different organizations do customer success differently. Not to say that they're doing it wrong, but some of them are definitely not customer success roles. So customer support is often merged with customer success into a customer experience org within the organization. So that often happens where one person is in charge of like support and CS, particularly if you're a leader, you might be in charge of both. Then customer success also tends to have a sales component at certain companies. So sort of like an account manager where you're responsible for expansions or upsells can definitely come into it. So that's another thing that I would say if somebody's getting into a customer success career and perhaps you don't like sales, you might be put into a position where you have to be in some sort of sales position. So definitely keep that in mind, or just don't apply to those roles. But it's going to be difficult because just given the way the market is, organizations want their customer success managers to be responsible for the growth of a customer, and growth means getting more money from them, getting more revenue from them, which is partly sales, but in a different way. Obviously, you do it through value delivery.
Right, and so it is, I think, recommended for anyone getting into it or changing jobs into a CS role to make sure that they go through the job description, understand what the job requirements are before they jump right into it.
Absolutely. And also a lot of the job descriptions out there are not CS roles. So just make sure that before you apply for it, I think we were talking about this, Rowan, sometimes companies will just put customer success in the title because it's sort of like a hot market right now for customer success. They just want to have that in the title, and it might not be a customer success role. So make sure you go through it. If there's things like value delivery, success planning, relationship building, those are customer success, jobs. But if it's more like answering tickets, more of a reactive approach, customer success is more proactive. So if it's more reactive, it's probably support. And then if it's more about selling the customer or even landing new customers, especially, that is definitely not customer success. That is sales.
Right. And so we've seen an increase in demand in the customer success space, and we've seen it increasing over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And so, do you see a big difference pre and post COVID in this as well? I know we've seen a lot more of this come up. What has been your experience?
It's changing right now, but as with any industry, any job in tech right now, customer success is also downsizing for a lot of companies. But the shift that I have seen just from speaking with other leaders as well is that CS now is becoming more of a focus because it's hard to land new business given the market, right? People just don't want to have those sales calls. They don't want to invest in new technology. They're like, we'll deal with ours or we'll downsize. Nobody's actually increasing, or very few people are actually increasing their tech stack. So particularly in tech, I think that customer success has become more important because driving loyalty with a customer, keeping them on so that they don't leave is definitely a target. So that is, I guess, a good thing for CSMs because they have more opportunities to do that. So that's sort of the change that we see right now. It is changing though. I think as the market picks up, things are changing. More companies are hiring for CS, but there's been a huge growth in the types of roles for CS as well, and CS leaders as well. There's a lot more CCO roles, chief customer officer roles, VP of customer success roles out there now than they were pre-COVID.
Yeah, and I think that's been our observation too. We're seeing, retention was one of the core focus areas for CS, when it started. But in the last few years, that's sort of become a hygiene. It's become not a nice to have, but a must have. And so now it's pivoting more towards expansion, about trying to, not just hold on to your existing customers, but see how you could offer them more value, with the additional, products, services, or anything else that you can offer to them. And so I think that's a pivot that we're seeing as well.
Yeah, I think there was a study done where they talked about how much revenue comes from existing versus new business, and about 90% comes from existing business, which is crazy, right? Not to invest in customer success.
Absolutely. And so that's how good segue for us to get into how I know we discussed briefly on how somebody could get into a customer success role, but once they've set their foot inside an organization in the CS space, what are different areas that they should keep in mind? What are different ways that they should try and adopt to grow up towards a leadership role?
Yeah, so there's definitely some things that you can do regardless of which role you're in, right? So I'll talk about, firstly, it's important to realize that leadership is different from management. What that means is you can totally be a leader in any role, and whether you're an individual contributor, or nobody can stop you from being a leader in your role. Being a manager obviously requires that promotion. So what does that mean? You can start diving into, understanding the metrics that are important to the business. That's something that you should do on your own, but also the one-on-ones that you have with your manager, with your skip level manager as well. And then the other executives in the company are also important to your growth. Don't just keep to your department, because sometimes it's like, you keep talking to your manager. Sometimes your manager might not even be in a position to be able to help you there. But once you're top of mind for more executives in the company, they'll be like, hey, Rohan, I can, did this, did that. And then that kind of drives that conversation saying, okay, you are doing more. And the third thing I would say is come prepared to those conversations. So there's a lot of managers that are first-time people managers. They don't necessarily have the training or know how to grow their team, or how to give their team promotions, or what sort of KPIs or metrics to set. Definitely talk to your manager and ask them, hey, what are your expectations? And help that drive those conversations to your promotion. But you need to do that research. And I've said this before, you're basically mapping out your own career path. And especially with customer success, just because it's not a career path that's well defined. There's so many different ways that you could go into CS. You could get into CS ops, for example. That's actually not a customer facing role most of the time. So that's something to consider if you're really good on the technical piece with data. You can get into CS ops, or you might be more of a salesperson. So you're like more of an account manager, or like a renewal manager. So it's important for you to sort of define that career path for yourself when you talk to your manager saying, hey, these are the areas that I'm really good at and I'm really interested in. And this is what I'm already doing in these areas. And this is, that's why I want you to help me with it. So I think that applies to basically any role. Regardless of CS. And secondly, I was thinking is that it's so easy to get bogged down with daily tasks in your job. So what tends to happen is when I do my coaching, I talk to people and I say, hey, these are things you should do. And they're like, I just don't have the time. I have kids, I have my personal life, I have my job that is super, super busy. I have back-to-back calls. I literally don't have time to just sit down and think about things. But what I will say is that this is just as important to your career as any other call that you're having. So make sure that you are setting time aside. Just make it a priority. Just set some time aside to think about where you need to be, and what those metrics are. Like you're basically creating a success plan for yourself, which is, this is where I need to be. This is what I need to learn in order to get there. Just self-reflection is so important. And of course, getting help from the right people. So if you're in CS, get help from other CS leaders, mentors, coaches. If you're in another career path, like obviously get help from whoever's relevant there.
Yeah, no, and a couple of great points that I took up from what you just said. One is identifying on, what you're good at, and trying to build on that. And so, there are, if you see today, a lot of organizations have specialist roles, right? So you have an onboarding specialist, a training specialist, implementation specialist. And so identifying what is it that you're good at, and then trying to see if you can hone into that, especially in those individual contributor roles, right? If you want to make sure that you're able to show your value, the way you show your customers the value of a product, if you're able to showcase your value, it makes it that much more easier, for the management to also make sure that your career progresses as effectively or as good as you'd like it to be. And the second bit is,
I was just going to say, and managers are also so busy. If they might have large teams, or they're busy regardless. So if you come in with a plan and you've already built out your success plan, it's less work for them. That's already something that you're taking off their plate. So you want to try and take off as much as you can off their plate, and then they'll look to you as the next leader or their right-hand man or right-hand woman.
I've in fact seen this with a few organizations, Bhumika, where individuals have, like you just said, try taking things off the plate of the manager. And, so one of these organizations that comes to mind did not have, CS ops, and it was a fairly large team with, thousands of customers. And so what this individual did is he was good with data, was good with, understanding, reading, making sense of it, putting it out there in a more consumable format. And so he took this up on his overtime, right? In addition to managing accounts, started building custom reports for the manager, started building, things that he could help out with, started helping cleaning up stuff that was actually messed up. And few months later, 6 to 8 months later, they actually created a CS ops division just so that they could actually transition him into it. And so if you see, that's exactly what you were just saying, that, make a path for yourself. There was no CS ops, but he created that by showcasing all of the things that a CS ops would ideally do, even before that role was offered to him. And so
I love that example. It's so relevant, especially for startups. It's definitely harder to do this with larger companies because they've got well-defined systems and career paths, and they're like, if you either fall here into this career path or you don't. But with startups, it's so much easier. You identify a gap or a need, and then you can work towards that. It really is not recommended, obviously, to do that in your free time, where you're just spending all your time doing this. If you can align expectations with your manager and say, hey, I'm going to spend maybe like 20% of my time working on, for example, CS ops stuff, and show you the value of it, and then deliver, that is absolutely a lot better than you just like killing yourself to do extra work.
Agreed. And the second point that I was saying earlier is the point of investing in oneself, right? And so maybe taking up additional courses, do some sort of certification, increase your knowledge, increase your understanding, because like you said, any room that you're in, whether it's with your management, whether it's your peers, you need to know what you're talking about. You need to have backing to it. So increasing your knowledge is going to definitely help you move ahead in the path.
Yeah, certifications are always sort of a little dicey for me. So I absolutely believe in the power of knowledge, don't get me wrong. But yeah, be very intentional about the types of certifications that you do, and identify where you are in terms of your knowledge. So I know a lot of people that knew nothing about CS, just went online, read a lot of stuff, joined a bunch of communities, got a mentor, and they learned so much through that. And then they took a course and they're like, oh, I already know this stuff. So it's important for you to understand where you are and what certification you take. But absolutely, I completely agree. Build your knowledge, whether you're just starting out or you're a CS leader or you're in CS management trying to get to a leadership position. I realize there's not a lot of content out there for that. So that's definitely something I'm working on. But yeah, absolutely build your knowledge. I love that.
Yep, absolutely. And so we've seen CS, members, practitioners across different roles come into from a lot of different backgrounds. So you have folks coming in from sales or from customer success. And so is there a trend, is there a pattern or anything that you've seen work best?
Yeah, at this point, I feel like there's so many different backgrounds from so many different walks of life. But I have seen a lot of teachers transitioning of late, and it totally makes sense. You're educating your customer, you're walking them through their product, you're onboarding them so that, and the teachers also have a lot of patience to deal with difficult people and difficult clients. So I see a lot of teachers transitioning, but I think at this point, coming from everywhere, honestly, retail, healthcare, sales background, non-sales background, technical backgrounds. I think sales, it does make it easier if you're already in some sort of, client-facing position, like a consultant or a sales position, but it's not necessary. Some people just have a flair for it. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so one other thing is we're seeing, in addition to the chief customer officer, we're seeing and hearing a lot of CS teams being aligned to CROs and CFOs these days. Has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, definitely. So the organizations that I've been a part of and I've also consulted for, generally the trend that I've seen is that you would have either the CSM or the CS team reporting directly to the CRO, or you would have a CCO reporting to the CRO. So that's another thing. Or you would have the CCO reporting to the CEO. So there are a few different ways that I've seen it being done. It's kind of all over the place, but I think I'm seeing more of the trend moving towards the revenue org. Which I think makes sense, especially if you're going to be responsible for expansions. But yeah, definitely there's organizations where they report to product, for example, if they're more technical. So yeah, it just depends on how you've set it up, but I definitely vouch for like customer success being part of the revenue team.
Okay. Yeah, and I think before we wrap up our call, are any last thoughts, any last recommendations to folks getting into CS and growing in CS?
Yeah, I think just really understand the KPIs in customer success. One of the gaps that I've seen, as much as you could be passionate about customer success, I feel like people run away from numbers. So don't run away from numbers. Really understand what is NRR, what is ACV, what is ARR, and then have those applications and interviews, because that's one of the biggest gaps that I've seen, is that people come in from obviously all kinds of industries, and then you come in and you're scared of understanding the numbers. That's also going to help you actually, once you're in a CS role, to move up into leadership, because if you can have the big picture of the impact and the KPIs on the business, and that's a view that you already have, you're already doing what a leader would be doing. So understand that, more than anything else in CS, just understand the numbers, how it works, and how it impacts the business.
Absolutely. Totally makes sense. Thank you, Bhumika, for taking the time out to chat with me today and sharing your thoughts with all the listeners.
Thank you so much, Rohan. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.